I recently had the amazing blessing of taking a trip to beautiful Jamaica, a true paradise on earth. Amazing. It was like a dream, really. As a nerdy funeral director, well, what do we often do? We visit people in our industry when we travel in other locations, other countries. So I had reached out ahead of time to the Delapenha Funeral Home in Montego Bay, Jamaica, where we were planning to go. They were very kind. They understood. They're also kind of funeral nerds too, I guess. And they said, absolutely, we'd love to meet you when you come to our beautiful country. Right off the bat, only living in Canada, I had very little to compare things to. Even the cab ride to Delapenha Funeral Home that morning was wild. Congestion, we would call it in our Canadian mind, but there it's just regular life. In Jamaica, you drive on the opposite side of the road as we do. There's a lot of busyness going on at all times. So as we made our way that morning, I was placing my life in the hands of the cab driver, a very competent young man, and he got me there. I was able to sit down with the manager, a very kind man. He'd been with the company for many, many years. And Delapenha, as a company, had started in the early 80s. They have a location in Montego Bay and also a location in Kingston. But the location I visited in Montego Bay, I think, is their original, and a wonderful group of hardworking people. The island of Jamaica, everything has to be imported in, such as a casket. Things like caskets. There's large casket companies that produce hundreds of thousands of units, but they would have to be shipped to Jamaica in shipping containers, or that's driving the cost up for the average person. So many funeral homes build their own caskets. Delapenha is no different. They have specialized in building their own caskets themselves. Incredible. All the colors, all the makes and models, and it's amazing to see the craftsmanship and really the attention to detail. Things that we don't often see. Caskets with plexiglass windows, so you can see your loved one. It was explained to me that it is not uncommon whatsoever from the point of someone dying to the service, sometimes could even be weeks or months later. So sometimes the plexiglass makes more sense to keep people safely away from each other biologically, I guess. But as they showed me around the place, they explained their location there also has a built-in flower store. Brilliant, amazing. They have a centralized location where they store their vehicles, where their embalming takes place, and the chapel that I visited is where smaller services take place, all their arrangements take place, where they would do their printing of their stationery, just like here in Canada. Incredible. I had the good fortune of running into one of their, I guess you'd call them their transfer guys, the guy that does the same thing that we do here. When the phone rings in the middle of the night, this gentleman answers the phone and goes to the aid and the assistance of a family, bringing the deceased into their care immediately from hospital, hospice, home, nursing home, all the same dynamics there, working 24 hours a day, just like we are. Another feature that I thought was very interesting is Delapenha Funeral Home actually purchased their own cemetery a few years ago. Beautiful, beautiful place. Like everything's beautiful in Jamaica, but this beautiful cemetery that they exclusively use for their funeral home, and just another development in their company's timeline. If Canada is sort of a 70-80% cremation, Jamaica is the exact opposite. Mostly burial and very few cremations. Cremation is on the rise, absolutely, but moving at a different pace as it is in Canada. It was explained to me that Jamaica is a very, they use the term, very God-fearing nation. So church funerals, full traditional funerals, very important, very much the norm there. Something else has started with them, and it was very interesting. It was explained to me that the idea, the concept, or the organized pre-planning of funerals is a fairly new thing in Jamaica. And one of the funeral directors had said to me, many families had learned the hard way that with no planning whatsoever, then dealing with the death, a sudden death or even an expected death, with no planning whatsoever, can often, but not always, can often lead to some chaos in the family. where's the money coming from? How is it going to go? How do we get everyone here? What did mom want? All of those things that happen. And as the funeral director explained it to me, she said that the more and more families prearrange and tell other families and go through the whole process, and then a death happens, they're feeling much more in control of the arrangements, of the money that's being spent, and just being on top of things more than the chaos that could happen. My hope and my dream is to return to Montego Bay and to visit my brothers and sisters again at Delapenha and talk about how things are changing. Maybe they'll hire me.